The desperate call. The sky above Vexar Prime burned with the orange glow of orbital bombardment. Ambassador Crix stood in the emergency command bunker, 300 meters below the surface, watching the tactical displays paint a picture of systematic annihilation. The Dominion Empire had arrived 7 days ago with a fleet of 200 warships, and the Vexari Defense Forces had lasted exactly 43 minutes. Now, millions of Vexari citizens huddled in underground shelters while Dominion drop pods fell like deadly rain across the planet's surface. The enemy wasn't interested in occupation or resources. They wanted complete subjugation, the kind that left a species broken and servile for generations. Crix had seen it before on other worlds, but he never imagined his own people would face such a fate. The communication console before him displayed a growing list of rejected aid requests. Each name on that list represented a supposed ally, a trading partner, or a member of the Galactic Accord who had sworn mutual defense. Each rejection felt like watching another door close on their survival. "Ambassador, we've lost contact with the northern continent," reported Commander Zelk, his scaled face showing the exhaustion of a week without sleep. The Vexari were a reptilian species, their green and brown scales typically vibrant with health. But stress had dulled everyone's coloration to a sickly gray. "The Dominion has deployed their atmospheric processors. They're converting our air to their preferred mixture." Crix closed his 4 eyes, a gesture of deep grief among his people. The atmospheric processors meant the Dominion intended to stay. Within months, the Vexari would need breathing apparatus on their own world. Within a year, any resistance would be impossible, as their very atmosphere became hostile to their biology. "Any word from the Celestial Union?" Crix asked, though he already knew the answer. "They cite the non-aggression pact they signed with the Dominion last cycle," Zelk replied. "The Etherans claim their fleet is engaged in peacekeeping operations in the Outer Rim." "The Quellins?" He paused, disgust evident in his voice. "The Quellins are already negotiating trade agreements with the Dominion for after our fall." The bunker shook as another kinetic strike hit somewhere above them. Dust fell from the ceiling, and several junior officers scrambled to check structural integrity readings. They were running out of time, and everyone knew it. "There must be someone," Crix muttered, scrolling through the database of known spacefaring civilizations. Most were either too far away, too weak, or already under some form of Dominion influence. The Empire had spent decades building its power base through intimidation and strategic alliances. Fighting them meant facing not just their fleets, but the political isolation they could enforce. Then a name caught his attention, buried deep in the archived contact lists. Earth, the humans. Crix had heard stories about them, mostly from traders who had ventured into their space. They were a young species by galactic standards, barely 2 centuries into FTL travel. But the stories were something else. Humans had fought 3 major interstellar wars in their short time among the stars, and they had won all 3. Not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through sheer stubborn refusal to surrender. They had once sent a fleet of mining vessels armed with improvised weapons to defend a colony and somehow defeated a professional military force. They had turned their own sun into a weapon to repel invaders. They were, by all accounts, completely insane by civilized standards. Commander Zelk noticed Crix staring at the screen. "You're not seriously considering the humans?" "They have no treaties with the Dominion," Crix said slowly. "No trade agreements to protect. No political capital to lose. They're isolated from galactic politics by choice." "Because they're unhinged," Zelk protested. "Sir, there are documented cases of human ships ramming enemy vessels when they ran out of ammunition. They treat war like some kind of competitive sport. Their military doctrine includes something they call acceptable losses that would horrify any civilized species." Another explosion rocked the bunker closer this time. On the tactical display, Crix could see Dominion boring machines beginning their descent toward the shelter network. They had hours at most. "Unhinged might be exactly what we need," Crix said, initiating the communication protocol. "What do we have to lose? If they ignore us, we're no worse off. If they send help, we might die in an even more spectacular fashion," Zelk muttered. But he didn't try to stop the communication. The quantum entanglement communicator took several minutes to establish a connection across the vast distance to Earth's territory. When the screen finally activated, Crix found himself looking at a human male with short gray hair and weathered features. He wore a black uniform with minimal decoration, and behind him was what appeared to be a strategic command center. "This is Admiral Marcus Chen, Earth Defense Coalition," the human said in accented Galactic standard. "We're receiving you, unknown caller. State your business." Crix straightened, trying to project dignity despite their desperate situation. "Admiral Chen, I am Ambassador Crix of the Vexari Republic. Our homeworld is under attack by the Dominion Empire. Our defenses have fallen, and our population faces extermination or enslavement. We formally request immediate military aid from Earth." The human's expression didn't change, but Crix noticed him gesture to someone off-screen. "Ambassador, I'm showing your location as the Vexar system, approximately 47 light-years from our nearest outpost. Can you confirm?" "Confirmed," Crix replied. "Admiral, I know our species have had minimal contact. We have no formal treaties, no trade agreements, nothing to offer you in this moment except our gratitude. But we're desperate. The Dominion is deploying atmospheric processors to make our world uninhabitable to us. We have millions of civilians in shelters that will be breached within hours. We need—" His voice cracked slightly. "Send us anything. We're getting slaughtered." Admiral Chun was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes studying something off-screen. Crix could hear muffled voices in the background, what sounded like a heated discussion. The human military officer held up one hand, apparently listening to someone through an earpiece. "Ambassador Crix," Chen finally said, "I'm going to be direct with you. The Dominion Empire has been on our watch list for some time. They've been testing our borders, probing our defenses. We've been expecting them to make a major move, but we thought they'd come for us directly." Crix felt his heart sink. The humans were going to refuse just like all the others. They would cite their own security concerns, their need to protect their borders. "However," Chun continued, and Crix's attention snapped back to the screen. "Earth has a saying, 'The enemy of my enemy is my friend.' The Dominion made a mistake attacking you first. It shows their strategy, their methods, and their willingness to commit genocide." The Admiral's expression hardened. "We don't take kindly to bullies, Ambassador. And we especially don't like genocidal empires operating in our stellar neighborhood." "Then you'll help us?" Crix could barely believe what he was hearing. Chen smiled. There was something predatory in that expression that made Crix understand why other species found humans unsettling. "Oh, we'll do more than help, Ambassador. You asked us to send anything." The Admiral turned to someone off-screen. "Prep the Prometheus for immediate departure. Full combat loadout. Signal the Mars fleet. Tell them Operation Hammer is now active." "Admiral," Crix said quickly, "I should warn you, the Dominion has over 200 ships in our system. Their technology is advanced. Their shields are nearly impenetrable by conventional weapons." Chen's smile widened. "Ambassador, you said send anything. You didn't specify size limitations. The Prometheus isn't just anything. She's everything. 2-3 kilometers of human engineering, armed with weapons that violate at least 15 Galactic Accord treaties we never signed." He paused. "We'll be there in 18 hours. 18 hours? Zelk blurted out from beside Crix. "That's impossible. The journey should take weeks, even at maximum FTL." "Should take weeks with standard FTL," Chun corrected. "Humans don't do standard." "We'll see you soon, Ambassador. Try to stay alive until then. Things are about to get interesting." The communication ended, leaving Crix and his staff staring at the blank screen. Above them, the Dominion continued their relentless assault. Boring machines ground ever closer to the civilian shelters. But for the first time in 7 days, Crix felt something other than despair. He wasn't sure whether it was hope or terror. When Titan's answer 17 hours and 43 minutes after the communication ended, every sensor in the Vexar system screamed a warning simultaneously. The Dominion fleet, arranged in perfect formation around Vexar Prime, suddenly found their instruments detecting a massive gravitational distortion approaching at impossible speeds. Commander Thrax of the Dominion Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship, Inexorable Might, watching the readings with growing concern. "What is that?" he demanded, gesturing toward the tactical display. "No ship creates that kind of subspace wake." "Unknown, Commander," his sensor officer replied, panic creeping into his voice. "The mass readings are... they must be malfunctioning. It's showing an object over 2 kilometers in length." "Impossible," Thrax snarled. "No species builds warships that large. It's impractical. Inefficient." His words died as reality tore open 300,000 kilometers from his fleet's position. The tear in space was visible to the naked eye, a writhing wound in the fabric of the universe that sparked with energies that should not exist. And through that wound came humanity's answer to the Vexari plea. The UES Prometheus emerged from what humans called a hellspace jump, like an ancient god of war taking physical form. 3 kilometers long and nearly half a kilometer wide, it dwarfed every ship in the Dominion fleet. Its hull was not the smooth, elegant design favored by most spacefaring species, but a brutal architecture of angular armor plating, weapon emplacements, and siege shields that gave it the appearance of a flying fortress. In the Vexari command bunker, Ambassador Crix stared at the tactical display in shock. The human ship was impossible. It violated every principle of efficient starship design. The power requirements alone should have been prohibitive. Yet there it was, as real as the death it promised. "By the ancestors," Commander Zelk whispered, "it's not a ship. It's a mobile battle station." The Prometheus wasted no time on dramatic announcements or demands for surrender. Instead, it immediately launched what appeared to be several hundred smaller craft from bay doors along its hull. These weren't fighters in any conventional sense. They were automated weapon platforms, each one bristling with ordnance that began targeting Dominion ships with mechanical precision. Commander Thrax was the first to recover from his shock. "All ships, concentrate fire on that monstrosity. Everything we have." 200 Dominion vessels opened fire simultaneously, their energy beams and plasma torpedoes converging on the human ship in a display of firepower that should have vaporized any known vessel. The space around the Prometheus lit up like a small star as the barrage hit, and did absolutely nothing. The human ship's shields didn't shimmer or fluctuate like conventional energy barriers. Instead, the attack simply seemed to stop existing a kilometer from the hull, absorbed by something that defied conventional physics. "Sir," the Dominion sensor officer said, his voice now pure terror, "they're shields. They're not energy-based. It's some kind of dimensional folding. Our weapons are being shunted into subspace." Then the Prometheus returned fire. The main gun of the human vessel was a spinal-mounted weapon that ran nearly the entire length of the ship. When it fired, it didn't produce a beam or a projectile in any traditional sense. Instead, it launched what humans called a reality spike, a concentrated burst of twisted spacetime that traveled at a significant fraction of light speed and ignored conventional shields entirely. The first shot struck the Dominion heavy cruiser Dominant Fist. The ship didn't explode so much as cease to exist. One moment it was there, 800 meters of advanced warship carrying a crew of 3,000. The next, it was an expanding cloud of subatomic particles. Its very molecular structure unraveled by the impossible weapon. "Impossible," Thrax breathed, watching one of his finest ships simply erased from existence. But the Prometheus was just getting started. Along its hull, hundreds of smaller weapons began firing in sequence. Mass drivers launched projectiles at relativistic speeds. Plasma cannons, burning hotter than stellar cores, sent streams of starfire into Dominion shields. Missile pods opened and released swarms of guided munitions that seemed to phase in and out of reality, appearing inside enemy shields before detonating. The Dominion fleet, which had spent 7 days leisurely destroying Vexari defenses, suddenly found itself trapped in a nightmare. Their disciplined formations dissolved into chaos as ships desperately tried to evade weapons they didn't understand, fired from a vessel that shouldn't exist. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Admiral Sarah Conway stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the tactical display with clinical detachment. Conway was Admiral Chen's chosen commander for this operation, selected specifically for her reputation as humanity's most ruthlessly efficient naval officer. "Ma'am," her weapons officer reported, "the automated platforms have engaged 17% of enemy forces. Shall we deploy the Reapers?" Conway nodded. "Launch all Reaper squadrons. And charge the Nova cannon. Let's show them what humans do to genocidal empires." From the Prometheus fighter bays, 300 more craft launched. But calling them fighters was like calling a shark a fish, technically accurate, but missing the essential predatory nature. The Reaper-class attack craft were piloted by humans selected for their ability to think in three-dimensional combat while enduring G-forces that would liquefy most species. The Reapers dove into the Dominion formation like wolves among sheep. Where the Dominion fought with careful precision and calculated tactics, the humans fought with controlled chaos. Reaper pilots performed maneuvers that seemed to violate physics, using microjumps to appear behind enemy vessels, launching antimatter torpedoes at point-blank range, and then jumping away before the explosions consumed them. In the bunker, Crix watched the systematic destruction of the Dominion fleet with a mixture of awe and horror. In less than 30 minutes, the humans had destroyed 40 Dominion vessels and crippled dozens more. The atmospheric processors converting Vexar Prime's air were priority targets. Each one was eliminated by surgical strikes from the Reaper squadrons. "They're not just winning," Zelk said quietly. "They're making an example." He was right. This wasn't merely a rescue operation. It was a message to the entire galaxy about what happened when humanity decided to intervene. Commander Thrax, watching his fleet being methodically destroyed, made a desperate decision. All remaining ships form up for a concentrated assault on the human vessel. If we can just breach their shields. It was the decision Admiral Conway had been waiting for. As the remaining Dominion ships formed into a tight attack formation, she smiled coldly. "They're bunching up. Fire the Nova cannon." The Nova cannon was humanity's answer to the question, what happens when you weaponize a miniature star? The weapon drew power from the Prometheus's 3 fusion reactors simultaneously, channeling it into a magnetic containment field that compressed hydrogen to the point of stellar fusion. The result was a directed stellar eruption, a beam composed of the same forces that powered suns. When it fired, space itself seemed to scream. The beam carved through the Dominion formation like a blade of pure light, vaporizing everything in its path. Ships didn't just die. They were reduced to their component atoms. Then those atoms were reduced to quarks. Then even those fundamental particles were torn apart by the sheer energy involved. In 12 seconds, 70 Dominion ships ceased to exist. The remaining Dominion forces broke. Military discipline collapsed entirely as surviving ships fled in all directions, their crews overcome by a primal terror that transcended species. They had come to Vexar Prime as conquerors, secure in their technological superiority and military might. They were leaving, those who could leave, with the knowledge that there existed a species that treated warfare not as politics by other means, but as an art form of applied destruction. Commander Thrax's flagship was one of the few vessels to escape, jumping to FTL the moment its drives finished charging. As the inexorable might fled the system, Thrax sent a single message to the Dominion High Command: "Do not provoke the humans." In the aftermath, as the Prometheus settled into orbit around Vexar Prime, Ambassador Crix found himself in communication with Admiral Conway. The human woman looked remarkably calm for someone who had just orchestrated the destruction of one of the galaxy's most powerful fleets. "Ambassador," Conway said, "we've eliminated the immediate threat and destroyed the atmospheric processors. Our medical frigates are en route to assist with your wounded. The Dominion won't be back. We'll make sure of that." Admiral Crix struggled to find the words. "What you've done. The entire galaxy will know of this within days." "The political ramifications," Conway smiled. Unlike Admiral Chen's predatory expression, hers was almost warm. "Ambassador, Earth has been alone in this galaxy for 2 centuries. We've watched empires rise and fall, seen species conquered and enslaved, observed genocide after genocide while the Galactic Accord debated and did nothing. We decided long ago that when we finally acted, it would be decisive. But why now? Crix asked. Why us? We have nothing to offer you. No resources worth this level of intervention. You asked for help, Conway replied simply. You didn't demand. You didn't try to manipulate or threaten. You simply asked, admitting you had nothing to offer but gratitude. Do you know how rare that is in this galaxy? Honest desperation and genuine gratitude. She paused before continuing. Besides, the Dominion was eventually going to come for Earth. Better to stop them here, save your people, and send a message all at once. The galaxy needs to understand that humanity might be young, might be considered primitive by some standards, but we have something most species lost long ago. What's that? Crix asked. Conway's expression hardened slightly. The willingness to be the monster that monsters fear. Your people are safe now, Ambassador. And if anyone else threatens you, just remember, you have our calm frequency. As the connection ended, Crix looked at the tactical display showing the debris field that had once been a Dominion invasion fleet. In less than an hour, humanity had shifted the balance of power throughout the galaxy. They had demonstrated that technology and numbers meant little against a species that had turned warfare into science and violence into art. The Vexari were saved. But Crix wondered whether the galaxy would ever be the same again. The humans had announced their presence not through words or diplomacy, but through the complete annihilation of a fleet everyone had believed invincible. In the depths of space, the Prometheus hung like a dark angel over Vexar Prime, its very presence a warning to any who would threaten the innocent. Earth had sent more than a warship. They had sent a declaration. Humanity was done watching from the sidelines. The age of human intervention had begun.